I stood at the gates of Rosewood Academy, my acceptance letter folded in my pocket, watching my biological parents drive away without a single glance back. The autumn wind carried the scent of freedom, and for the first time in both my lives, I felt nothing but quiet certainty. They had made their choice 15 years ago. Today, I was making mine. My name is Lily, and I have lived twice. In my first life, I was born to James and Catherine Morrison, a couple who wore their disappointment in me like a badge of honour. I was their firstborn, but I was not their favourite. That distinction belonged to my younger sister Emma, who arrived 3 years after me with golden curls and a smile that could manipulate anyone into giving her the world. From the moment Emma could walk, I became invisible. Not gradually, but completely, as if someone had dimmed the lights on my existence and turned up the spotlight on hers. When I brought home straight A's, my father would glance at my report card and ask where Emma's art project was. When I won the regional piano competition at age 12, my mother scheduled Emma's dance recital on the same day and insisted we attend that instead. "Lily, you understand, don't you?" my mother would say, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Emma is more sensitive. She needs our support." I understood. I understood that my achievements meant nothing, that my feelings were inconvenient, that I existed to serve as Emma's supporting character, her shadow, her stepping stone. The worst part wasn't the neglect, it was the active erasure. When I was 14, I saved for months to buy myself a laptop for my coding projects. I worked weekends at the local library, shelving books and organising files. The day I brought it home, Emma saw it and wanted one too. She cried and screamed until my parents bought her the newest model. Then, to be fair, they took mine and gave it to her as well, so she would have a spare. "You can use the family computer," my father said, not looking up from his newspaper. "You don't need your own." When I protested, when I showed them my bank statements and receipts proving I had bought it myself, my mother's eyes turned cold. "Don't be selfish, Lily. Family shares everything. Emma is your sister." I learned then that justice was not something I would ever receive in that house. At 16, I was accepted into a prestigious summer program for young scientists, full scholarship, a chance to study with leading researchers. I was ecstatic until I learned Emma had summer camp during the same weeks, and my parents needed me to stay home to help with household chores while they travelled with her. "The programme runs every year," my mother said dismissively. "You can apply again?" But it didn't run every year. It was a one-time opportunity for my age group. When I tried to explain, she walked away mid-sentence to answer Emma's call about which swimsuit to pack. I stayed home. I cleaned their house. I watered their plants. I forwarded their mail. And when they returned, tanned and laughing about their wonderful family vacation, no one asked how I had been. No one noticed I had barely eaten. No one cared that I had spent 2 weeks crying myself to sleep. That was the summer I started disappearing into myself, building walls they would never be able to breach again. Senior year of high school arrived with the promise of escape. College applications became my obsession. I would leave this house, this family, this life, where I didn't matter. I applied to 15 universities, all far from home. I wrote essays late into the night, poured my pain into words about perseverance and independence. I got into 7 schools, full rides to 3. The day the acceptance letters arrived, I made the mistake of telling my parents at dinner, my voice shaking with hope that maybe, finally, they would be proud. My father frowned. "Those schools are too far away." "What about Emma? She'll need help applying to colleges next year." My mother nodded. "You should stay closer to home. Community college is more practical anyway. Emma will need you around for emotional support during her senior year. I felt something crack inside my chest. This is my future, my education, my life. Your life? My father's voice turned sharp. We raised you, clothed you, fed you, and this is how you repay us? By abandoning your family? The irony of his words would have been laughable if they hadn't hurt so much. Emma, sitting across from me, smiled sweetly. I think Lily should do what makes her happy, but I would miss her so much. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, her eyes wide and innocent for our parents' benefit. When they looked away, her expression shifted to something colder, more satisfied. She leaned close and whispered, You really think you're better than us, don't you? You're nothing without this family. I pulled my hand away. I went to my room. I accepted my place at the farthest university that had offered me a full scholarship. Northeastern, over 1,000 miles away. My parents didn't speak to me for a week. When they finally did, it was to tell me I was selfish and ungrateful, that I was breaking my mother's heart, that Emma cried every night thinking about me leaving. I left anyway. College was supposed to be my salvation. For the first 2 years it was. I thrived academically, made friends, discovered who I was without the weight of being the forgotten daughter. I changed my major to computer science, joined research labs, started building the foundation of independence I had always dreamed of. But my parents' damage ran deeper than I realized. I struggled to accept help from others, convinced that any kindness came with conditions. I overworked myself to the point of exhaustion, terrified that if I wasn't perfect, I would become invisible again. I kept people at arm's length, certain that getting close to anyone would only lead to betrayal. Junior year, I met Daniel. He was kind, patient, and persistent in a way that slowly broke down my walls. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where I was loved, where I mattered to someone. I should have known better. We dated for a year. He met my family once during Thanksgiving break of my senior year. I had tried to avoid it, but he insisted that family was important, that he wanted to understand where I came from. The visit was a disaster in slow motion. My parents fawned over Emma, who had blossomed into a beautiful, charismatic young woman with an army of social media followers. They barely acknowledged me. Daniel noticed, I could tell, but he said nothing during the visit. Afterward, things changed. He became distant, critical. Your family is right, he said one night. You are kind of cold, kind of hard to connect with. Emma is so warm and open. I can see why they relate to her better. The betrayal cut deeper than any of my parents' neglect. This person I had trusted, who I thought saw me, had looked at my family for 2 days and decided they were right about me all along. We broke up a month later. He started dating my roommate a week after that. I graduated summa cum laude with 3 job offers, but I felt hollowed out, like I was walking through life as a ghost of myself. I took a position in Seattle at a tech startup. I was good at my job, excellent even. I moved up quickly, earned respect, made money, but I was lonely in a way that went bone deep. I had proved I could succeed without my family, but I had also proved that their rejection had carved something essential out of me. On the rare occasions I called home, the conversations were brief and hollow. My mother would update me on Emma's life, her engagement, her wedding, her pregnancy, and ask nothing about mine. My father would make small talk about weather and sports, never asking about my work or my life. Emma called once, a few months after her daughter was born. Lily, I need a favour. My husband and I want to take a vacation, just the 2 of us. Could you come home and watch the baby for a week? Mum and Dad are too tired to do it. I have work, Emma. I can't just take a week off. God, you're still so selfish. I should have known. Don't bother calling me again. She hung up. My mother called an hour later to berate me for upsetting Emma during such a vulnerable time. My father sent a text. "Disappointed in you." I changed my number after that. Years blurred together. I was 32 when I got the diagnosis. Stage 4, cancer, aggressive and merciless. The doctor's face was sympathetic as he explained that treatment options were limited, prognosis grim. 6 months, maybe 8 if I was lucky. I didn't call my parents. What would be the point? I spent my final months tying up loose ends, ensuring my affairs were in order. I donated most of my money to scholarships for first-generation college students. I wrote letters to the few friends I had maintained, thanking them for seeing me when my own family never did. On my last night, alone in a hospice room with machines beeping softly around me, I didn't think about my parents or Emma. I thought about what my life could have been if I had mattered to someone from the beginning, if I had been loved unconditionally, supported genuinely, valued inherently. I died with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, filled with regret, not for the life I lived, but for the life I never had the chance to live. And then I woke up. I was 15 again, sitting in my childhood bedroom on a Saturday morning in late spring. Sunlight streamed through the window I had forgotten existed. My hands were smaller, smoother, unlined by years of work and stress. My body felt lighter, younger, but my mind was fully intact. Every memory, every pain, every lesson from 32 years compressed into my 15-year-old consciousness. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. This was impossible. This was insane. But it was real. I could hear my mother's voice downstairs, talking on the phone. "Yes, Emma got the lead role. We're so proud. She's worked so hard. Oh, Lily, she's around somewhere. You know how she is, always in her room." The casual dismissal in her tone was familiar, but this time it didn't hurt. It didn't touch me at all. Because this time, I knew the truth they would spend years denying. Nothing I did would ever be enough. Nothing I achieved would ever matter. They had made their choice, and I was not it. But I had a choice too, and this time I was going to choose myself. I spent the weekend in my room, formulating a plan. I remembered every important date, every opportunity, every mistake from my first life. I knew which summer programs I should apply to, which competitions to enter, which connections to make. But more importantly, I knew something my parents never expected. I didn't need them to succeed. I never had. Monday morning, I went to school with a new clarity. I found Mrs. Patterson, the guidance counsellor who had always believed in me during my first life. She had retired before I graduated originally, but now she was still here, still kind, still insightful. "Mrs. Patterson, I need help with something," I said, sitting across from her cluttered desk. "I want to apply for emancipation." She blinked, surprised. "Lily, that's a serious step. Can you tell me what's going on at home?" I could have lied, could have fabricated abuse or neglect in the legal sense, but I didn't need to. I simply told the truth, that my parents were not cruel, but they were absent in every way that mattered, that I had saved money from years of birthday gifts and small jobs, that I wanted to finish high school while supporting myself, that I had researched the process and understood the requirements. "I know this sounds extreme," I said calmly, "but I also know that staying in that house is slowly erasing me. I need to leave before there's nothing left." Something in my voice, some certainty that came from having lived this once before, must have convinced her. She didn't dismiss me. She didn't call my parents. She said, "Let me look into this. Give me a week." That week, I started laying groundwork. I applied online for a part-time job at a local bookstore, a place that had hired me during college in my first life, and where the owner, Mrs. Chen, was kind and fair. I registered for online courses that would let me graduate early. I opened a bank account at a different bank than my parents used, under my name alone. I also stopped participating in the family dynamic that had poisoned me before. When my mother asked me to skip my own school events to attend Emma's, I said no. When my father suggested I give Emma my savings for her summer trip, I said no. When Emma demanded I help her with her homework while I was studying for my own exams, I said no. The word felt revolutionary. My parents didn't know how to respond. They were used to my compliance, my desperate attempts to win their approval. This new version of me, calm, detached, unmoved by guilt trips, confused them. "What's gotten into you?" my mother demanded after I refused to cancel my study group to drive Emma to the mall. "You're being incredibly selfish lately." "I'm being honest," I corrected. "I'm simply prioritizing my own education and future. That's not selfish, that's self-preservation." She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. 2 weeks after my conversation with Mrs. Patterson, she called me into her office. "I've spoken with a family lawyer who does pro bono work. She's willing to meet with you. But, Lily, I need you to understand. This will change your relationship with your family permanently. Are you sure this is what you want?" I thought about my first life, about dying alone, unloved by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, about spending decades trying to fill a void they had created. "I'm sure," I said. The legal process took 3 months. My parents contested it, of course, but half-heartedly. The judge asked me direct questions about my home life, my plans, my ability to support myself. I answered honestly and thoroughly. I showed bank statements, job offers, detailed budgets. I demonstrated that I was mature, capable, and determined. The judge granted the emancipation on a Thursday afternoon in September. I was officially a legal adult at 15, free to make my own decisions, free to live my own life. My parents' faces outside the courtroom were a mixture of shock and relief. My mother cried, but they were performative tears for the strangers watching. My father looked angry, but also distant, as if I were already a stranger to him. Emma wasn't there. She had a dance competition that day, and of course my parents had suggested we reschedule the court date around her schedule. I had refused. "I hope you know what you're doing," my father said coldly before they walked away. "Don't come crying to us when you realise how hard the real world is." "I won't," I promised. And I meant it. I moved into a small apartment near the high school, funded by a combination of my job at the bookstore, my savings, and a small scholarship Mrs. Patterson had helped me secure for emancipated minors pursuing higher education. It was tiny, just a studio with a kitchenette and a bathroom. But it was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could make me invisible within its walls. The first night alone, I sat on my second-hand couch and cried. Not from sadness, but from relief so profound, it felt like morning. I was free. Truly, completely free. School became easier without the emotional weight of going home each day to people who didn't value me. My grades, already excellent, became perfect. I joined clubs, made friends, started tutoring other students in computer science and mathematics. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. I was simply becoming who I was meant to be. That winter, something unexpected happened. I met Margaret. She was the owner of a small cafe down the street from my apartment, a woman in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair and laugh lines around her eyes. I had started stopping by for coffee before school, and she always had a kind word, a warm smile. One particularly cold morning, when I came in shivering because my coat was too thin, She made me hot chocolate instead of my usual coffee and added an extra pastry to my bag. "On the house," she said when I tried to pay. "You look like you need something sweet today." "Thank you," I said, surprised by the sudden tightness in my throat. Such a small gesture, but it was more than my own mother had done for me in years. I started coming by more often. Margaret and I would talk while she prepped for the morning rush, about books, about life, about nothing and everything. She never pried into my personal life, but she paid attention in ways that made me feel seen. "You're a smart girl," she said one day. "I can tell you've got an old soul. Been through some things." "Something like that?" I said. She nodded. "Well, you've got a good heart despite it. That's what matters." Weeks passed. Margaret started saving me pastries that didn't sell, refusing to let me pay. She helped me study for exams, quizzing me on vocabulary while she kneaded dough. She asked about my day and actually listened to the answers. It took me a while to realize what was happening. She was mothering me, not in the smothering, conditional way my biological mother had failed to do, but in the quiet, consistent way that real love manifests. She expected nothing from me except that I be myself. She celebrated my successes without comparing me to anyone. She supported my decisions without trying to control them. One evening in early spring, I stayed late at the cafe helping Margaret clean up after a particularly busy day. We were washing dishes side by side when she said casually, "You know, I lost my daughter a long time ago. Car accident when she was 17. Some days it feels like yesterday, and some days it feels like a lifetime ago." I stopped washing, unsure what to say. "I'm so sorry." "Me too." She was quiet for a moment. "She would have been about your age now, I think. Maybe a little older. I like to think she would have been like you. Strong, independent, kind, even when the world hasn't been kind to her." Something broke open in my chest. "Margaret, you don't have to say anything," she said gently. "I just want you to know that you have a place here. Not just in my cafe, but in my life, if you want it. No expectations, no strings, just a place." I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. This woman, who owed me nothing, who barely knew me, was offering what my own parents had withheld my entire life: unconditional acceptance. "I'd like that," I managed. "I'd like that very much." From that day forward, Margaret became the mother I had never had. She attended my academic awards ceremonies, cheering louder than anyone. She helped me research colleges and drove me to campus visits. She taught me how to cook real meals, not just survive on instant noodles. She listened when I needed to talk and gave me space when I needed silence. On my 16th birthday, she threw me a surprise party at the cafe with all the friends I had made at school. There was cake and laughter and genuine joy. When I blew out the candles, I wished for nothing. I had everything I needed. My biological parents didn't call. Emma didn't text. And for the first time, their absence felt like a gift rather than a wound. Senior year arrived with a momentum I had never experienced in my first life. I was class valedictorian, captain of the academic decathlon team, and had already been accepted to 5 prestigious universities with full scholarships. More importantly, I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way that felt foreign and wonderful. The morning of graduation, Margaret helped me get ready in her apartment above the cafe. She had bought me a beautiful dress, simple, elegant, nothing like the frilly, childish things my mother had always picked out for Emma. "You look stunning," Margaret said, adjusting my collar. "I'm so proud of you, Lily, not just for your achievements, but for your courage, for choosing yourself when it would have been so much easier to stay small." "I learned from the best," I said, hugging her tightly. She pulled back, eyes shining. "I have something for you." She handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a phoenix pendant. For rebirth, she explained, for rising from the ashes of what tried to destroy you. If she only knew how literal that metaphor was. I wore it to graduation. Margaret sat in the front row, beaming. Mrs. Patterson sat beside her, wiping away tears. My boss from the bookstore was there. My friends filled an entire section. My biological family was nowhere to be seen. During my valedictorian speech, I talked about identity and independence, about the families we're born into and the families we choose. I didn't mention my parents by name, but anyone who knew my story understood what I was really saying. We are not defined by those who fail to see us, I said, looking directly at Margaret. We are defined by those who choose to stand beside us, who believe in us even when we struggle to believe in ourselves. To everyone who has been a light in my darkness, thank you. You saved my life in ways you'll never fully understand. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, as I was taking photos with friends, I saw them. My parents and Emma standing at the edge of the crowd, looking uncomfortable and out of place. My mother approached first, her smile strained. Lily, honey, that was a lovely speech. We're so proud of you. The words were hollow, performative. I felt nothing. Thank you for coming, I said politely, distantly, as if she were a stranger. I didn't expect to see you here. Of course we came. You're our daughter, my father said, but he couldn't meet my eyes. Emma stepped forward, her expression calculating. She had grown more beautiful in the 2 years since I'd left, but there was something brittle in her perfection. Congratulations, Lily. I always knew you'd do well. Maybe we could get dinner sometime, catch up. I understood immediately what this was. Now that I was successful, now that I had become someone, they wanted back in. They wanted to claim credit, to rewrite history, to pretend they had been supportive all along. I don't think that's a good idea, I said calmly. We all made our choices. I'm happy with mine. I hope you're happy with yours. My mother's face crumpled. How can you be so cold? We're your family. No, I corrected gently. You're the people who raised me. But family is about more than biology. It's about showing up, about caring, about seeing someone for who they are and loving them anyway. You never did that for me. You made that clear every single day of my life. We gave you everything, my father said, his voice rising. A home, food, clothes. The bare minimum isn't love, I interrupted, and it's certainly not family. I found real family when I stopped looking for it, from people who were never going to give it. I turned and walked back to Margaret, who was waiting with open arms. She wrapped me in a hug that felt like coming home. Behind me, I heard Emma hiss something to our parents, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. That chapter of my life was closed, and I had written a better ending than they could have ever given me. College was a revelation the second time around. Without the trauma of my first life weighing me down, without the desperate need to prove my worth to people who would never value it, I flourished. I made genuine friends, pursued research that excited me, allowed myself to be vulnerable with people who earned that vulnerability. I stayed close with Margaret, visiting during breaks and calling regularly. She came to my graduation 4 years later, crying happy tears as I walked across the stage with honours. She had become more than a mother to me. She had become proof that love could be chosen, that family could be built rather than inherited. I got a job offer from a major tech company in my field, one of the best positions available for new graduates. The salary was more than I had dreamed of in either life. But the real victory wasn't the money or prestige. It was that I had achieved it on my own terms, without sacrificing my self-worth or accepting scraps of affection from people who didn't value me. On the day I signed my employment contract, Margaret took me out to celebrate at a restaurant she had been saving for special occasions. "I want you to know something," she said, raising her glass. "Watching you grow into the woman you are has been one of the greatest privileges of my life. Your biological parents missed out on knowing someone truly extraordinary. Their loss is my gain." "I wouldn't be here without you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You gave me something I didn't know I was allowed to have. Unconditional love. You were always worthy of it, sweetheart. You just needed to find someone who could see that." We clinked glasses, and in that moment, I felt a completeness I had never achieved in my first life. I had everything I needed. I had become everything I was meant to be. 3 years into my career, I received an unexpected message on social media. It was from Emma. The message was long, rambling, filled with the kind of fake vulnerability that she had always used to manipulate our parents. She talked about how she had made mistakes, how she missed me, how she was going through a difficult divorce and needed family support. She asked if we could meet, talk, maybe rebuild what we had lost. I read the message twice, looking for any genuine remorse, any real accountability. There was none. Just excuses, justifications, and thinly veiled requests for money and emotional labour. I thought about responding, thought about telling her exactly what her years of manipulation and cruelty had done to me, thought about itemising every moment she had stolen from me, every opportunity she had taken, every wound she had inflicted. But in the end, I simply deleted the message. She didn't deserve my anger. She didn't deserve my forgiveness. She didn't deserve my time or energy or thoughts. She deserved exactly what I was giving her. Nothing. My parents reached out occasionally over the years, usually during holidays or when they wanted something. My father needed help with computer problems. My mother wanted advice about social media. Emma needed a reference for a job application. I responded politely, but minimally. I fixed my father's computer once, remotely, and sent him a bill at standard consulting rates. I sent my mother links to YouTube tutorials. I declined to provide Emma with a reference, as I couldn't honestly speak to her character or work ethic. They never asked about my life. They never congratulated me on promotions or accomplishments. They never acknowledged that they had failed me or that I had succeeded despite them, not because of them. And slowly, over time, they stopped reaching out altogether. I am 30 now, in this second life. 13 years since I woke up with a second chance. 15 years since I walked away from people who never deserved me. I have built a life that my 15-year-old self could barely have imagined. I'm a senior engineer at a company I respect, working on projects that genuinely matter. I have friends who celebrate my successes and support me through challenges. I'm in a relationship with someone who values me, who sees me, who chose me and continues choosing me every single day. And I have Margaret, who is now 70 and officially retired from running the cafe, but who still makes me hot chocolate on cold mornings and still calls me every Sunday without fail. Last month, Margaret asked me something that made me pause. "Have you ever regretted it? Walking away from them? Choosing to build a new family instead of fighting to fix the one you were born into?" I thought about my first life, about dying alone, about spending decades carrying wounds that never healed, about never knowing what unconditional love felt like. "Never," I said, "not even once." "Good," she said, squeezing my hand, "because you deserved so much better than they could give you. And I'm selfish enough to be grateful that their loss was my gain." Sometimes I think about what my biological family's life looks like now. I know from occasional internet searches that Emma's social media presence has dwindled, that her influencer dreams never materialized into actual success. I know my parents are aging, that my father retired last year, that my mother posts vague complaints about ungrateful children. I feel nothing when I see these things. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even pity. Just a distant acknowledgement that they are living their lives and I am living mine, and those lives no longer intersect. They didn't destroy me through their neglect. They didn't break me with their betrayal. They simply taught me the most valuable lesson I could learn. That I was never the problem. That I was always worthy. That I was always enough. I didn't need to destroy them to win. I didn't need revenge or confrontation or dramatic justice. I simply needed to outgrow them, to build a life so full and rich and beautiful that their absence became irrelevant. My victory was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right, about my worth, my strength, my capacity for love and success and happiness. Some nights when I'm sitting in my apartment that I bought with my own money, or having dinner with Margaret and my chosen family, or falling asleep next to someone who loves me genuinely, I think about my 15-year-old self standing at that courthouse. I think about the courage it took to walk away, the faith it required to believe that something better existed, the strength it demanded to choose myself when I had been taught my entire life that I didn't matter. And I think about what I would tell her if I could reach back through time. I would tell her, "You made the right choice. The family you find will be better than the family you left. The life you build will be more beautiful than anything they could have given you. Your freedom will be worth every moment of uncertainty and fear." I would tell her, "You didn't abandon them. You saved yourself. And that is the bravest thing you could have done." I would tell her, "You deserve to be loved unconditionally. You deserve to be valued and seen and celebrated. And when you find people who give you that, hold on to them, fight for them. Choose them every single day the way they choose you." But most importantly, I would tell her what I know now, what it took 2 lifetimes to fully understand. You didn't destroy your parents or your sister by leaving. You didn't take anything from them that they valued. You simply stopped allowing them to take everything from you. My victory was never revenge. It was becoming untouchable. It was building a life so solid, so genuine, so full of real love that their absence became meaningless. I didn't destroy them. I outgrew them. And in the end, that was the greatest freedom of all.